What's happening? Welcome to the 68th episode of the Slapstream with Djordje live from Slapsville. Thanks to all of you that are subscribed to the channel. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button, make sure to do that right now. And share all these episodes or at least the playlist with all the other bass players that might be interested in this subject. I'm pretty sure that maybe not like 100% of slap bass players, upright slap bass players, know about this show by now, since I've been doing it for a year and a half. But let's spread the word. Help me out. Spread the word about the art of slap bass. Spread the word about Slapstream and Slap Bass Sunday. I don't know if you remember that one, but that's the one that I've been doing before the Slapstream. Before that, I wanted to promote the stuff that I do, and then now I want to promote stuff that other bass players do. Thanks a lot for all the support. If you'd like to support the show, make sure to check out Venmo and PayPal link. It's in the description of the video, and especially Patreon. There's like more and more of you that are joining Patreon, and I'm really thankful for that. That's really helping me out, helping out the Slapstream. One of the reasons I kept going for almost 70 episodes. For now, the goal is, I don't know, maybe 100. I think that's pretty much it. It's funny because at the beginning I thought that I would do like just 10 episodes, then 15, then 25, then 50. Now it's almost 70. So I'd say if I can reach 100, that'll be awesome. And you can help me out with it with Venmo, PayPal, and Patreon. And with buying these bass t-shirts. This one is Don't Forget, Never Fret. The link for the merchandise, it's also in the description of this video. Last episode was with Deke Dickerson, my big friend. I know Deke pretty much since I moved to the States. He offered me my first tour, in national tour, and I'm really thankful for that, and I always will be. And today I will feature his bass player, his current bass player. They've been playing with him in a band, Deke Dickerson and Whippersnappers. He's not that young, but he's younger than Deke, so I guess there's a Deke's hillbilly humor is the reason for the name of the band. And Deke recommended him to join the Slapstream, and that's good enough for me. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce ZANDER GRIFFITH.
Hey, how's it going? What's
It's going
happening,
good.
Djordje?
How are you?
Pretty good.
So how have you been doing, like during this whole craziness with the end of the world thing?
It's hard to come up with an answer that everybody hasn't already said, but it was definitely weird, and I don't know. At the beginning, when there were 0 shows, it was hard because that's all I know, playing shows.
It's so weird, but I noticed that you said in a past tense. So do you think it's over, or
I mean,
is there
it's not
hope?
over, but there's some gigs now, so
Yep.
and it's increasing more and more. So it's been nice. My sanity is a little more intact.
I think we can all agree with that here in Slapsville. So thanks a lot for joining me here. And I would like to present you and your career as much as possible. So let's start with the beginning. I'm interested to hear, how did you become interested in music? How did you discover upright bass, more specifically slap bass, and all that fun stuff?
Well, when I was maybe in 8th grade, I had a friend who started getting into rockabilly. He played stand-up bass in the orchestra at his school. My school didn't have an orchestra, so I didn't really have any access to instruments like that. But he showed me this style of playing that he had learned, the slapping style, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I immediately gravitated towards it. I bought all the albums I could find that had that kind of style on it. And of course, begged my parents for a stand-up bass of my own. I would go to Guitar Center and play the little stand-up bass on a stick thing that they had. Their I don't electric upright, I guess. But my friend who got me into it told me to look up drag triplet on YouTube, and he's like, "That's all you need. Just watch these videos." And I just studied them. I didn't have a bass. I would try it on my friend's electric bass, and it sounded horrible. Try it on my guitars at home, and it just consumed me. I couldn't think about anything else.
And that was around 2007, 2008, something like that?
Yeah, maybe 2006, 2007, yeah.
Okay. Just to get a perspective. So did you immediately start a band? Or like when did you get a bass? Have you convinced your parents like to get you one?
Yeah, I'm still working on it. No, I'm kidding. They I just kept talking about it, and my dad found a music store by his house that had one for a few $100, I think 400. And I actually just recently sold that bass. But I took it home and then started slapping on it, and I was so excited. And my stepmom came down and was just like, "Are you sure you're supposed to play it like that?" And I was a little bit heartbroken, but I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure." I don't know if anybody's gonna like it but me, but
And did any of them like seen you play since then?
oh yeah, I
Okay.
got a lot better since then, so it's a bit more tolerable.
Well, obviously, since you're here in Slapsville now, so
Yeah,
I
I've
hope,
made it.
yeah, I hope they're watching the show as well. So, when did you start your first band?
Um, well, at the time, I think I was in a band playing keyboards. I should have included one of those pictures, but I played this white keytar in a band called the Wizard Factory, and that and I always wanted to play stand-up bass in a band, but I'm sure you're aware of the struggle of finding other people who are interested in playing rockabilly, especially outside places like LA or Austin or something like that. If you're in some other town, there's not a huge abundance of rockabilly kids that are in a rush to start a band. And if they are, they're playing stand-up bass also, and it's kind of hard to start a band of just stand-up bass players.
I can feel you. I grew up in Serbia, and I thought that things would be much easier once I moved to the States, once I moved to California, but it's still kind of hard, like, to find people that you can click with and play music and make music together.
Especially starting your own band as opposed to joining a pre-existing band.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think that joining pre-existing band, it's excellent, especially in those
Oh yeah,
early stages. It really helps you out, like learning
you can learn
more and
so
more
much.
songs.
Yeah, you can learn so much from people that have been around the block a couple times.
Absolutely. So, what was your first bass? Do you
Um,
remember?
I'm sure it was Chinese, but it was I don't want to guess at it. I want to say Cremona.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, the first bass that I bought here in the States was Cremona, so
oh yeah,
I know,
is
like
that a Chinese
SB3 or
brand?
something.
It was not a very nice bass. It
Yeah, I
might have
mean,
not even been a Cremona. It was a quarter size. I do remember that.
Oh, really? You got a
Yeah,
small one?
yeah,
Okay.
because that's what the music shop had.
Huh.
My options were a bit limited. Or
Huh.
I could go to the fancy orchestra shop and spend $1,000 on a three quarters or something.
And you grew up in San Jose, right?
Yeah, in San Jose,
Oh, okay.
California.
There are a couple bass shops over there. I think it's
Yeah, there's Kamamoto Strings.
and Alex's shop. I think it's down there as well. That was kind of the main one. I used to live in Bay Area in San Francisco, so I remember
Okay.
I went there a couple times. Um, so for how long were you with that band? Did you guys like travel, play any shows? What was going on?
Um, with my first band, we didn't really travel at all. I tried to start a rockabilly band with a friend shortly after that, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I found somebody who's into rockabilly, but they're not really that good at guitar, you know? So it was kind of just keeping on moving from there. Then I started a band called the Druids with my friend Billy. And initially he wanted me as the bass player playing electric bass because it was kind of a punk band. But one one night we were hanging out, I showed him some Stray Cats and Reverend Horton Heat, I think I was listening to at the time. And it kind of just like blew his mind. And he went on a vacation that weekend and came back and could play all the licks on both records. I don't know. He's an amazing musician, but um then he was like, you know what, you should play upright bass in this band. And we kind of restructured some of the old songs to be a little more rockabilly, and he wrote a bunch of new ones. And we played mostly backyard shows, punk stuff like that. um a few shows for this production company in the area called Pinup Productions, which is it was a lot less rockabilly than it sounds. They booked mostly screamo bands, stuff like that. It was very big at the time. But yeah, that was the first main band that I played upright bass in.
And what is the name of the guy of that guitar player?
He goes by Billy Druid.
Oh, okay. Oh, so he still goes with the name of your old band, right?
Yeah, well, he got the name from a Germs song. In
Ah,
the song Strange Notes, they say Billy Druid's face is marble. I don't know what that
oh,
means, but he yeah, he took the name, and he's done quite a few recordings since then. I think he recently released a more country kind of thing.
mhm.
Um he's released rap albums. That guy is he he's amazing. He
All
does
right,
a
I'd like
lot.
to check him out. You mentioned that you play or played electric bass. Do you still do that?
Oh yeah. This is a picture of me playing at Maui Sugar Mill with a band called The Torrents. That's a band that I write songs for.
Oh,
Um,
do you sing as well?
yeah, I'm kind of front that band. Play with a guy named Edward Vietkovsky and PJ Franco, who plays in Delta Bombers. He
Mhm.
plays drums. Um, yeah, two really talented musicians, and it's a fun band to play in. More
Nice.
not so rockabilly, but I call it funk punk.
Funk. All right. Do you play any other instruments?
um I dabble. um I I can kind of fake my way through guitar sometimes, mostly rhythm guitar. I'm not much of a lead player. Recently, I've developed this obsession with buying 80s toy keyboards,
Mhm.
and I don't really play piano very well. I took piano lessons for maybe 6 years when I was a kid,
Oh
and
wow.
I watched this this interview with Booker T and the MGs, and he was talking about how sometimes an instrument calls out to you, even if you're already a musician playing one instrument. And that's kind of how it was for me with the upright bass. But I had always enjoyed music. I knew I wanted to be a musician, but I played piano and I liked it, but I could tell there was something else. And then I tried playing guitar a little bit, and I still play guitar quite a bit.
But you started on piano.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's just
How
kind of
old were you?
embarrassing to say because I'm not much of a. If somebody asked me to play piano right now, it would be embarrassing. I
You
think
would
I
not
was
be able to play like Great Balls of Fire or something.
no.
No, okay.
I mean, I could. The closest I could get is just doing one of those, famous Jerry Lee things where he just scrapes across the piano.
Well, it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do you want to play? Do you want to play your toy piano, or you want to slap some bass?
Let's slap some bass. Let's.
All right, let's
We're
do
in
that.
Slapsville.
Yep.
Do you want me to play anything specific?
Whatever you want to.
All right, let me angle this up so you can see me a little bit.
So I will feature you like this so you can figure out.
Oh, sweet. So I got this white one. It's a king that came black, and I had I'm sure Checo's been mentioned on the show before. He repainted it for me. I've as Deke was talking about, I've changed pickup setups and string setups a bunch of times, but this is my main gigging bass lately. I don't know what. Do you want me to play anything specific?
Oh, no, whatever you feel like it. I'd like to hear you and all of us here in Slapsville to hear you slap a little bit. So
Okay.
whatever you feel like, you can play, you can sing and play, you can just don't sing, just sing.
Okay, gotcha.
Whatever you feel like it.
Well, the first thing that I learned that I was really really proud of was Demented Our Goes Surf Ride to Oblivion. I think if you go to any psychobilly show, you'll hear somebody warming up with. But I at first, especially like Deke said, I was a classic example of I was just focused on doing the right hand stuff, and I just wanted to play really fast. But I found nobody wanted me to do that when I got hired for gigs. And yeah, I guess these days I'm doing more stuff like. I kind of like doing stuff. I had a guitarist that I played with that told me I should always be kind of half soloing while I'm playing, but not too much. And there's kind of a weird balance between those two things because there's definitely something to just keeping a perfectly steady, I mean, look at, Johnny Cash and stuff like that. Like you don't always need anything more than that, or the, Fred Maddox. And I mean, I think with bass lines, sometimes there's a fine line between genius and moronic, you know?
What do you prefer?
Um, I don't know. It depends on the song, you know? Sometimes you need something super dumb, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but there's also a time and place for, intricate, crazy, um, heavy slapping stuff. One of the things I grew up listening to a lot was the Necromantics instrumental "Panic at the Morgue," and um, there's this triplet thing that Kim does in it that I can't do to this day. But also, I was telling you earlier, watching your Atomic Boogie video on YouTube, there were a bunch of things that I was just like, how is he doing that? And just trying to copy each little lick that I could see and hear.
It's interesting. I think that song's been like really influential to lots of people, and it was one of the earliest examples of slap on YouTube. And for some reason, there's still people like come to me and say, "Well, you're the Atomic Boogie guy." So I guess will always be that. Cool. Thanks for sharing some slapping. If you feel like later on, you can slap a little
All right,
more.
sounds good.
There's
Maybe I'll
always
play the other one later.
there's always time for more slaps. Um, so after your that band, did you say Druids, right?
Yeah, the Druids.
And that was in San Jose still.
Yeah, that was in San Jose.
Okay. Any other bands like from that region that you would like to mention before you move down to LA?
Not that I played in. My buddy that got me into rockabilly had a band there called the Rocket Zombies,
Mhm,
and they played with Stellar Corpses a lot. I
mhm.
remember they were a big band for me growing up, just because
Wow.
I mean, a lot of it was that they were a psychobilly band I could go see, because if there weren't very many rockabilly or psychobilly acts in San Jose, and if there were, they were playing at a bar, and I couldn't go.
Yeah.
It's a very
Ah,
21 and over scene, you know.
got it. So how old were you when you got into rockabilly?
14.
Mhm. And you
Um,
started bass 15? Is that what you mentioned?
yeah, yeah, it
Okay.
was pretty shortly after.
All right.
I think
Well, I'm
part of
glad.
it was because I knew I could never play those guitar parts.
Well, I'm glad you discovered bass and slap bass, especially. So, and then you moved down to LA, right?
Then I moved to LA after a couple years of not playing in a band. Those were the dark ages.
Would you
And
like to?
I joined this band called the Rayford Brothers.
Okay.
Um, and I played with them for quite a few years. One of the interesting things is I've learned almost I think I would say I've learned more from guitar players about playing bass, it seems, than than other bass players a lot, because um there's just a different thought process sometimes, because I like playing things that are interesting, and sometimes I end up just playing, if the song has a shuffle feel, then I play this bass line, and then it ends up like, okay, that's just the bass line from that other song. But doing little things that kind of add a little more motion or make things different, or even just about the sound. I guess the point that I'm getting at is the guitarist of that band, Link Rayford, otherwise known as Dan Edwards, helped me a lot developing not only my style in playing, but tone and sound and everything.
That's nice. And you mentioned that that you were learning playing upright bass, like with more from guitar players. And I forgot to ask you, did you ever have like any formal education, music education, or I mean, besides piano, 6 years of piano lessons?
Kind of on and off. When I was in high school, I was in wind ensemble, oddly enough, playing stand-up bass, which I realize is not a wind instrument. I realize that now, but none of us were very good at it, especially at reading music, and it made it worse that nobody could hear us because we were behind a tuba section, so there was just no way we were going to cut through the mix. So I wish I could say I got a lot better doing that, but it was once I joined the jazz band, I started taking private lessons with a guy named Andrew Hartman, and I learned a lot from him. Then took a year at West Valley Community College, and I was taking private lessons with this jazz bass player named Gus Cambeats. He's pretty well known in the jazz scene in the Bay Area. He taught me a lot, especially about intonation and playing lines that are hip. But yeah, just I think the thing I got most out of private lessons and stuff like that were getting my intonation together and timing, because I think those two things are so underrated in slap bass.
Oh, I absolutely agree, especially in especially in the psychobilly scene and rockabilly kind of. But I can notice that more with psychobilly bass players. It's almost that slap is more important. I love slap, but I still feel that having a good tone, having a groove, lock with the drummer, and intonation, that all of these things are like way more important than actual slap. Slap is kind of like an ornament.
Right.
It's the best ornament.
But what's
in
a
the
tree
world,
without the ornament?
Sorry, what have you said?
I said, what's a tree without the ornaments, though? Since we're in the Christmas season, you need the ornaments.
Yeah. Sure. We all love the ornaments. That's why we're here in Slapsville. You mentioned that you also write songs. I'm interested to hear what is the process of you writing songs. Do you come up with lyrics or chord changes or the bass line? And especially, how do you write bass lines when you write your own songs?
I usually start with a chord progression. I'll usually start on a guitar, trying to figure out some chord changes. But then I really think the most important thing about how a song sounds is the groove, and that's bass and drums. And I kind of write those two in tandem, because you could have a great bass line that just doesn't work with the drum beat that's doing. You could have a great drum beat that the bass player is like not really matching or complementing. And I think the second thing I work on after the chord change is the groove. Again, that being both the bass line and the drums in tandem.
All right. So no starting songs with cool groovy bass lines.
I mean, that can happen sometimes. I was actually watching Tiger King, and they were playing the Tom Waits version of "Way Down in a Hole."
Mm-hmm.
And there was this bass line in it that was like boom, boom, doo 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 dun, dun 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 dun, and I immediately was just like, all right, I need to do something with this feel but it was kind of like a loungy, almost like bossa nova type of vibe.
Mhm.
And I wanted it to have like a Sonics kind of feel. So what's really important to me with the bass and the drums locking in is the kick drum kind of matching the main beats of the bass line.
Mhm.
So if I have a bass line that's like boom, but do do dun dun dun, then that kick has got to go like boom, 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 like it. They kind of have to match on where they hit. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it can happen that way, and it's like, all right, now all I need is lyrics, and the guitarist can figure out what to do later. They always think they know better anyway.
Yeah, it's helpful like to have a guitar player that can help out like with riffs when writing songs for sure. Let's get back to bass. What would you say? Who are the biggest influences on your bass playing?
Marshall Lytle was a big one. I mean, I didn't know his name for the longest time, but just hearing those Bill Haley recordings, it was just amazing to hear the bass in it, and that click being so present, almost to the point of like a psychobilly record, even more than modern rockabilly records. And I thought that was super cool. Stuff like that. I mean, I mentioned earlier watching your videos, Kim Necroman for sure. Trying to think of who else.
So coming more, if I understand correctly, you came kind of first like from that psychobilly sound, and then got more into rockabilly and traditional music,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was always into the traditional stuff, but I didn't kind of dive deeper into it until I moved to LA, because the traditional rockabilly thing is so huge in LA. It was something that I felt didn't even really exist in the Bay Area.
Uh-huh.
The occasional rockabilly person you would see was more like a greaser look. Like you would see more cuff jeans and t-shirts than you would slacks and vintage shirts and stuff like that. So playing shows and hearing the rockabilly DJs and stuff play the kind of more obscure, kind of wild rockabilly stuff, that that made a big difference, because it was kind of like, on one hand, I had psychobilly that had that, punk rock thing to it, and then rockabilly that I really enjoyed, but I was always kind of wanting it to. I'm like, didn't they push it just a little further? And there's records like that, but they're not as popular as, like growing up with the Stray Cats. I immediately, went out and bought a Gene Vincent record and an Eddie Cochran record. But those guys are definitely great. But then I was like, well, how come you can really hear the click in the Bill Haley record, and you kind of have to listen for it on these other records? And yeah, I think a lot of why I originally gravitated toward psychobilly is how heavily the click is featured, and also I've always been into punk rock, and having that element makes a big difference. And I mean, I think that 50s rock and roll and rockabilly, they always talk about who started punk and what was the original punk, and it goes back as far as you want to go. It was just that crazy guy that wanted to play, wild music.
I agree with you. It's interesting thing about Bay Area that you mentioned. Since I spent about 7 years in Bay Area, there were quite a few bands. I remember that DX was putting out traditional rockabilly shows, always in the Mission District. It was either Elbow Room or 12 Galaxies. I don't know what's going on with those clubs right now. And then what was the Knockout? There was a Knockout as well. Did you go to any of those?
I turned 21 and moved to LA pretty shortly after.
Ah,
So
okay.
I went to very few bars while in San Jose.
And there was like the bands that I remember like from of that style, the Haywoods. The Haywoods were, I think they might have been from Santa Cruz. I played with them for a couple of years.
Okay.
And that's actually how I met Deke. Not
Oh, cool.
not the first time, but I think the second time when he invited me to tour with him, it was when we opened with the Haywoods for him. And there was also Mitch Polzek and Roll Deuces.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that band.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I love
We
Mitch.
just played a show with them a few weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
It's all running together now. But yeah, Mitch is awesome.
Mitch is great. Was that up in Bay Area?
No, he came down here. He did I think just a short tour, but
Oh,
it
okay.
was in Long Beach.
Oh, nice. As far as like essential slap-based recordings for you, you mentioned Panic in the Morgue
Yeah.
by Necromantics, and you mentioned Surf Ride to Oblivion.
Yeah,
Demented Argo.
that's a classic
Any others?
one.
Any more rockabilly by any chance?
Let's see. I mean, specifically slap bass stuff. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I mean,
Well, you did mention like a Bill Haley and in the
right.
Necromantics, Atomic Boogie, and Demented Argo. But I was wondering, just like if you have, I always try to find more and more slap-based recordings. So that's the question that I kind of selfishly ask, so I can discover new music.
Yeah, I mean, Frantic Flintstones. I remember a few of those recordings. I forgot. I had a psychobilly band in San Jose briefly called the Skinwalkers. That the guy I had engineering the album was this guy named Aaron Madsen, and I sent him a bunch of recordings. I'm like, make the bass sound like a combination of this, and I forget exactly what I sent him, but I think one of them was
Frantic Flintstones?
A Frantic Flintstones song they called it Shake a Bone Capone, but it was Ursel Hickey Going Down That Road. You know that one? Going down that road, feeling kind of blue. But
I'm not sure. I do know Frantic Flintstones pretty well. I'm not sure if I know that song.
Yeah, that was a cool one. It was one I heard on. There was like a psychobilly box thing that was on iTunes. That there were a bunch of things that weren't really. There was like Johnny Ramone doing Viva Las Vegas. I'm like, I don't know what's rockabilly about this, but it's cool.
Oh, that was the beginning of the HeadCat. That was with Lemmy, right?
Oh, I didn't even realize it had Lemmy on it.
I'm pretty sure, because I know that the HeadCat started as when Johnny Ramone wanted to have tribute to Elvis, and that's how the whole thing with Lemmy started. And then he asked Lemmy asked Jim asked Danny, and then they did that record. Then they had, I think, like studio time left. They did the whole HeadCat record after the tribute to Elvis thing, and then a couple guys played, and I joined 2007, I think. Played a bunch, and the rest of history.
Nice.
So after you moved, you mentioned you moved to LA, and what are the bands that you played since then?
The main one I played with starting out was called the Rayford Brothers. They're still playing a ton. They play a few times a week, every week. That was one of the main appeals. I moved to LA with, I don't know, like a few $100 or something, and I had this audition for this band, and at my going away party, people were like, "So, do you have some interviews lined up? You got a job down there?" I'm like, "No, but I have this audition with a band, and I think it might go well. So we'll see." And they're like, "No, I mean like a real job." And that ended up being, I mean, it's still my full-time thing, but that band alone was my full-time job for years. Started out just playing clubs wherever we could, and then we were playing downtown Disney for a long time. Then doing a bit of traveling. You might have seen there's this Facebook video that got a lot of shares of us dressed like Batman and Robin.
Huh.
And playing Miserlou, and that helped the band quite a bit. But then after I left that band, I was kind of just playing gigs here and there, whoever would hire me. And if anybody's watching, I'm still hireable. I have open dates. But my main bands these days are obviously Deke Dickerson and the Whippersnappers. Also Reckless Ones, who has got an album coming out next year. That'll be really cool. Let's see, who am I forgetting? Oh, I play with a band called Johnny and Jaylene, who are they do a lot of like oldies, blues, stuff like that. Some even some, modern pop punk stuff even. But they're the true Whippersnappers, really. This guitarist you see all the way to the right, Justice Guevara, he's 18 years old, maybe 19 now. He's also an excellent stand-up bass player, and a great guitar player. And when I first saw him, I decided I either needed to join him or kill him. But and then Johnny Ramos, who is the son of blues guitarist Kid Ramos, who played in the Fabulous Thunderbirds. He's a great musician. Jaylene's a great singer. We have this guy named Christian Healy on drums. It's a great band.
Tell me a little bit more about that Rayford brothers and that whole Batman and Robin thing. Was that in Disneyland? How did that all happen?
Well, we couldn't really do it in Disneyland because I think Disneyland doesn't own DC. I think they own Marvel though, and there would have been like some kind of issue. But the guitarist kind of got the idea to do it as like a Halloween costume, but people really liked it, so they just started. Yeah, there we go. We started getting people contacting us from like Comic-Con type stuff and playing superhero conventions, superhero themed stuff. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, just it was supposed to be a Halloween costume for the month of October only, and it became basically its own separate band, like our alter ego.
All right. And the Reckless Ones. I remember Reckless Ones opening for Tiger Army a few years ago, and I remember enjoying the music. When did you join the band?
I joined the band just a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3. But I saw them play, long before I was in the band when I was I think I was just 21 years old, and I still living in San Jose, and went to the Long Beach Cyclone and saw them play, and I was like, this band is awesome. And then a few years later, they contacted me to join. That was pretty cool. But they were definitely one of the highlights of that festival. Even though I'm a member now, I remain a fan.
All right. I remember they brought like some fresh energy to the scene.
Yeah,
How did you
I wish
join
I
Deke?
could have been on those shows.
How did you join Deke, and for how long have you been playing together?
Well, Deke was friends with Bert Avalos already, who's the rhythm guitarist in the Whippersnappers.
Okay.
But then Bert recommended me when Deke was asking about young bass players. I was a little bit younger then. Maybe it's been about 3 or 4 years. I don't know what the cutoff for being a whippersnapper is, but we were worried we were on the cusp of it, on the tail end of it, even when we joined. So every time I see a younger bass player, I'm like, don't steal my gig. I need this.
It's really fun playing with Deke. How do you like it?
It's awesome. It's I was just telling a friend how it's really incredible as lighthearted and silly his performances, just the work ethic of that dude. He works so incredibly hard and puts on a great show, and plays guitar awesome, obviously. But I feel like nobody talks about Deke singing. He's a good singer too. He's a really good singer.
He's an excellent singer, excellent songwriter, excellent showman, really good bass player. I featured him in the Slapstream last week. And what about this photo? You're playing acoustic guitar on this one.
Yeah, we've tried to incorporate it in our show to switch instruments as much as possible. So Deke gets to play bass at some point. And every time I get to hold Deke's custom hollow body, I'm like, don't break it. Also, I'm like, this is probably the stupidest solo that's ever been played on this guitar.
Oh, you're soloing on it as well, huh?
Yeah, only because it's part of the show. I still got to work on it.
We've been talking about guitar now for a while. Do you mind
All
grabbing
right,
the
I'll
bass,
stop.
maybe the other one, and then
Yeah,
play
sure.
a little bit of slap solos? I heard you play some solos with Deke that sounded pretty good.
Yeah, let's
One long slap bass solo.
okay, let's see. Do something in C.
Any key you want.
All right. Well, what do you do when you ain't got a towel? You stand like a fool buck naked in the shower, drip dry. Everybody drip dry. Oh, you got your troubles and I got mine, but everybody got to drip dry sometime. Go skinny dip, dipping in the lake. Someone steal your clothes while you're away, drip dry. Everybody drip dry. Oh, I wish I was missing my clothes too, 'cause I wouldn't mind drip drying with you. All right.
All right. I dig it. Who wrote that song?
That was by the Two Man Gentleman Band. That wasn't an original.
Oh, I remember those guys. I played with them, I think a whole tour or a couple of shows.
Oh, wow.
When I was in a band, Fish Tank Ensemble. And then I think they opened for us, and it was like maybe Midwest.
Okay.
I forgot. It was a long time ago. But excellent band. Oh, cool, man.
Yeah, you asked about recordings. I mean, the bass player on that, Fuller Condon. It's Condon, I think.
Uh-huh.
But I went to see Reverend Horton Heat once after having been a fan of that band for a long time, and they were touring with Unknown Hinson and the God, what is the name of that band? They're like the Fabulous Rhythm something.
Legendary Shack Shakers.
Legendary Shack Shakers. Wow, that's amazing that you got that. I wasn't even close. And they kicked ass, and I saw that bass player. I'm like, hey, that's they called him the Councilman in Two Man Gentleman Band, and it blew my mind to see him. And he was one of the first bass players I saw with the little clip-on microphone thing. And I just love the tone of those things. I think they sound great, but every band I play in is way too loud to use something like that.
Was he using that with the Shack Shakers? Or
I don't think so. I don't think. I think he was just using a regular pickup, like a piezo or something.
I forgot. Like I seen him play a bunch with the band, but I don't remember him slapping much. Was he a big slapper?
No, but he did it sometimes.
Yes,
he wasn't.
I remember him slapping. I just don't remember him slapping a lot.
And it's interesting what you were talking about, Deke, about how slapping almost kind of died out for a while, but it's obviously rockabilly and psychobilly that have made it become a thing again. But it's interesting that it's not just in those genres that it's used now. I mean, there are jazz players that, will throw in a little, like, it's kind of a different style, more that God, I hate that I'm blanking on this name. The Chess Records guy.
Willie Dixon?
Willie Dixon, yeah. Like watching those videos of him slapping, it's kind of not exactly the typical rockabilly slapping, but it's like, it's awesome. And I feel like in recent years you see a bit more non-rockabilly players play that style or incorporate it in certain parts of what they're doing. More bluegrass acts that are, doing stuff like that.
Absolutely. I'm glad to see there's more and more slappers.
Yeah, absolutely.
In many different genres. I would like to talk a little bit about your gear. So since you're holding that bass, can you tell me how many basses you have? What are those? Tell me about your favorite strings, pickups, amps, and if you're using any, pedals, effects, whatever is the part of your gear.
Okay. Well, I've been told by a few people that this bass is probably a Hofner. The only markings on it on the inside say made in Western Germany, and that's all that I really know about it. So if anybody has more information on a bass with a little sticker in it that says made in Western Germany. But I mean, like a lot of bass players, I go through a lot of changes in equipment. This bass I use mostly in the studio and with Deke. And so I kind of keep this bass as my traditional bass for gigging and recording. It's just the bass side Underwood pickup. I have tension screws in all of my bass bridges, just because I had issues with them falling out, and yeah, it's not only falling out, but a pickup dying in the middle of a gig and have to switch to my backup one quickly. It's hard to, it's an instrument that doesn't seem to be meant to be amplified, but we're fighting with it constantly. As far as the strings, there's a period of time I had all guts on it. Right now it's silver slap, E and A. It's a gut D, and I think it's a Superior Bassworks G. There's not a cool story to how I arrived at that formula. It's more that I couldn't get a clear enough tone out of the E and the A, so I switched them to the silver slaps. The G gut string just broke, and I put this on as a temporary fix, and that was 2 years ago. So time flies. Yeah, that's this bass, and then the other one has a bit more going on with it. The drummer in the Reckless ones, Dylan, is very technical, and he's been kind of an enabler as far as me buying too much gear or fiddling with my setup all the time. So at some point I was using the EMG magnetic setup with these Eurosonic strings. And I didn't really like the EMGs. You use those, right?
That's a part of my pickup, yes.
Right.
It's 1/3 of the sound.
Right. So I liked the way they sounded. Just the setup at the time didn't work for me. Yeah, and I kind of had this phobia at the time about batteries because I had them die on me at gigs too often, and if it had a battery with it, I was just terrified of it. So I ended up going with this passive magnetic pickup. It's the Crevo, and I had bought one a while back, and I didn't like the mounting system because it was just a piece of Velcro that you stick on the bottom, and then another side of Velcro that you stick on the pickup. But the weight of it will take it off every time. It seemed like a completely useless design to me. But they've since incorporated this L bracket thing in the back. I don't know if you can really see it. Yeah, not really. You can look it up on Google Images if you're interested. But they incorporated that, and I still had issues with the Velcro sticking because I like throwing my bass around a lot and being too rough with it. But Dylan, my drummer in Reckless ones, helped me epoxy it only the bracket, so the pickup is still removable, but the bracket is on there. And on this bass, I blend it with a Vicks pickups, piezo, a single wing pickup on the bass side. If any bass players who haven't tried that, just do it now. They're so cheap and so good. And then those two go into an LR Bags preamp to blend it, fix the phase problems and all that. And I'm still kind of, working on the tone. Right now I have the Eurosonic Ultralights, and especially as I've been doing more pizzicato stuff, I know that's a bad word in Slapsville, but the more I've been doing stuff like that, the lower tension strings are almost more difficult. And I don't play in a lot of bands that require me to play extremely fast. So I think I'm going to go to the regular lights. I don't know. It's an ongoing thing. I'm sure I'm going to be changing my setup till the day I die. But then either of these basses will go into, I have a Mark bass, forget if it's the mini Mark or what it's called. I have the box right up there. It's an 800 watt head. It sounds great. I had used Mark bass heads as backlines a couple times, and Greg, the bass player for Delta Bombers, uses one, and I always just thought his tone sounded great. So I started using that. I have a GK cab, but I've replaced everything inside it with non-GK stuff. I have these Eminence something light. They're neodymium speakers, but they're like extremely loud. So that cab is pretty cool. It's a 4 ohm 212. What else? Oh, I actually don't have it with me, but I have a deal with Radial, and I have this preamp that I got so that I could play stand-up bass and electric bass on the same gig and switch more easily. So I basically have both instruments plugged in. It's kind of like an A/B switcher type thing. It's pretty cool. It's called the Bassbone OD, and yeah, I'll plug the bass into one input. It even has an impedance matching thing specifically for a stand-up input. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I use a Polytune tuner. I don't know if that matters.
Do you use the bow? Do you play with the bow?
I hadn't in a really long time, and I was just in the studio with Reckless Ones, and our producer was like, I'm kind of hearing bow on this song. Do you have a bow? And I'm like, don't tell my high school, but I think I accidentally stole like 2 or 3 of them.
2 or 3 of them by accident.
I don't know how I ended up with them. I have so many bows at my house, but I have one functional one. They've all, got the hairs are all over the place.
I know we're in Slapsville, but I highly recommend playing with the bow. Highly.
It sounds great. I love to when I can. It's just one of those things where it's kind of like an uphill battle where I have to start at square one, since it's a new technique. But yeah, I recently laid down some bow on an album. Yeah, I definitely do want to get into that.
I'm looking forward to hear that. And you mentioned Krivo pickups. I am familiar with those. Like that's Jason Krivo from Portland. I'm not sure if he still lives over there. he was playing in the band Vagabond Opera, and me with Fish Tank Ensemble, my band Fish Tank Ensemble and Vagabond Opera played together a lot.
Oh,
He
nice.
gave me, I believe, a couple of those, a prototype, and then I think the one with L bracket as well. I remember those pickups that I had in my case as a backup for a while, for kind of like a long time. So you're basically combining that one with Vic's pickup. Is that kind of your favorite setup? Okay.
Yeah. So far, it's
You know,
worked really well for me.
nice. As far as, since you belong like to a different generation than most of the guests, most of the Slapstream guests here, I would like to hear your opinion on what is the best way to get the gig, to find musicians to play with, to form a band, to go on tour, any of those. I mean, times change, and I feel that, you know, some of the information that we got from some of the guests are not really that relevant anymore.
Okay.
So what would you say, like, what is by your opinion the best advice that you can give, like, to some younger people, or like people, you know, our generation that wants to play more?
We touched on this a little bit earlier, but play in tune and in time. That's so it makes such a big difference. When I first started playing, I briefly played in marching band in high school, and that was one of the I was playing marimba in that, but that was one of the first times I'd been forced to play to a metronome. And I remember being certain that the metronome was speeding up and that there was something wrong with it or something. And they're like, no, there's something wrong with you. You're playing out of time. You're slowing down. And that it was mind blowing for me. And every time I hear somebody say that they have never played to a metronome, I always tell them, you have no idea how much it will benefit you.
Practice with metronome?
Yeah, I still do.
How do you do it? Do you put it on 2 and 4, or 1 and 3, or every quarter note, or what do you do?
I usually just do it on quarter notes, every quarter note.
Mm-hmm.
I know there is definitely something to taking out those the 2 and the 4, so you can kind of decide where those go, because one of the cool things about playing in time is once you can do it, you can start to kind of shift the time a little bit, and there's something that's super cool about that, where you're like, I'm gonna, pull it back a little bit. I'm gonna play just slightly behind the beat or slightly ahead of it. Or there's a lot of musicians that can't change the time that they started on purpose, and I think that's a big thing that will get you rehired. If the song starts too fast and they say slow it down, and you can be the one who pulls it back. Also, in your question about what's my advice to get more gigs, be easy to work with. That, I think that makes a huge difference. If you're an awesome musician and an asshole, that will often not get you hired again.
Those are wise words. So when you mentioned, you said like taking out 2 and 4 beat, like on a metronome, are you talking about keeping metronome on 1 and 3, or keeping metronome on 2 and 4?
I mean, I think experimenting with both could be interesting, especially just having a better idea of kind of taking the training wheels off as you're going.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember my band teacher when I first started playing in the school jazz band. telling me to pull way harder on 2 and 4 than on the 1. And it's weird what a difference that makes in the whole feel of everything, you know, like a versus and just making sure you're locked in with that snare.
Yeah, it just swings a little more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very essential for playing jazz. So since we're talking about practicing and exercises and all of that that can help us all to be a better bass player and better musician and to lock better with the drummer, what would you recommend for other bass players to practice on a daily basis?
I don't do this, but I think I should, and I think other people should. Just go through. You know, I'm sure you know the Simandl.
Sure.
Go through that book and play it with a metronome. I know it'll have markings for down bow, up bow, and maybe that's what I should use to learn bow better. But going through that book, even just practicing your scales to a metronome, and really listen to see if you're in tune, because I think it's really easy when you practice by yourself without playing to a recording or anything like that. You could think you sound great, but you're totally out of tune. You might be more or less in tune with yourself, but you're teaching your hands to be at the wrong spots. And every time I see those markers on the side of the bass, I'm like, it's going to be wrong on a hot day. You know what I mean? Like I think when approaching the upright bass, you should treat the lack of frets as an advantage rather than a disadvantage. Because if you're listening, you can adjust your intonation. If you're playing electric bass and the intonation is set up wrong, there's nothing you can do about it. You still have to play in that fret. But you can play an out of tune bass in tune because of the lack of frets.
I agree with you on Simandl. That's one of the books that I would definitely recommend. And since you mentioned the Simandl and more like a formal education approach, do you sight read as well?
I don't.
I don't. Okay.
I can read, but it'll be like, all right, every good.
Read a little slower. But
yeah.
Do you see any advantage of learning that or not?
Oh, totally. There are gigs that I missed out on because I couldn't do it, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like a New Year's resolution every year. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna buckle down, and I'm gonna learn how to sight read, because there was a cruise ship gig that I didn't get because I couldn't sight read, and there, I mean, I think get as good as you can so there's nothing stopping you from getting hired, because there's a lot of techniques that might be fun to learn, but I don't think not knowing them will stop you from getting hired. Like, if I couldn't do, like, I mean, you should be able to do it if you're a, rockabilly bass player. But I don't think any band leader is going to be like, if you can't do the slap triplet, you're out, but, just make sure you can, whatever gig that you would want to do, just make sure, like, you weren't just too lazy to learn how to read music like I am.
You just mentioned slap triplet. Do you mind going, and you're still holding your bass, so I'll take advantage of this. So do you mind like showing me and showing us here on the Slapstream all the slap patterns that you use in your playing. And I would especially like to hear, do you name those patterns like a single slap, double slap, triple slap, stuff like that, or you have your own terminology? But start from the most basic one and just go like to the most complex one, and let me know what is the terminology that you use.
Okay. I mean, this one, I would call that a single slap. As far as I've called that a few different things. I usually try to speak the language of whoever I'm playing with that day. So, if they start calling it something, I've heard it called two beat, which would be more like the beat of the song. It's not really the style, but if somebody says two beat, I know to probably play something like that. Um, I don't know if I've ever called that a double slap. Um, I've heard that called a drag triplet, but I don't really think it is. Um, I don't know how I feel about the term drag triplet anyway, because it's not a triplet. I think it's just kind of confusing. It's more like a 16th note with a missing beat in it. But I know there's the infamous quad slap, which I don't know how to do, and I think it's great if people can do that. I just never learned how. I've tried, but it hurts my hand. Let's see.
So what
I
else?
mean,
I mean, you started with single slap. What's the next one?
okay,
What's a double
and
slap
then
for you? What's a triple slap for you?
if somebody said double slap, I would assume they mean this. But maybe that's wrong. Maybe this is a single and this is double. And then triplet would be like
that's what I would call it, like what we just played. That's the terminology that I use.
Well, that's one of the things that I didn't even think about, because it's kind of a weird style. So there's not so many formal teachers that will teach you about this stuff. I mean, I'm sure you give lessons, right?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, that would be really the best way to learn. But I didn't even realize that this kind of playing without the in-between slaps, I didn't realize that was something that was really done. But it's almost just like playing pizzicato, but adding a little more thump to it. And I think there's a lot of songs that I just used to butcher because I always had to have that in between slap kind of thing. Not that that's bad. It's just it's got to suit the song, you know. But moving on to I would say a triple slap. I would call that a triple slap. And then, you know, the quad thing would be, instead of like one and a two and a three, it'd be like one knee and a. I think that's kind of the feel to that. But then the thing with the drag is kind of interesting, because it's basically this kind of technique that I used to exclusively play that with the kind of like palm / wrist to hand, rather than just the fingers repeatedly. I think I can get a lot more control out of just the double slapping with my fingers, but I'm starting to lose my train of thought. Oh, that's what I was going to say, is when you're in the middle of doing double slap kind of stuff, a lot of people will incorporate a drag into that. And I don't know if that would be called a drag triplet, or I would just call them drags. But if you're going, instead of, you'll do something like, and I guess that'd be a drag, but it's really just like a very quick, that kind of thing. Did I fully answer it?
Oh yeah,
I'm not
of
sure
course.
if
I want to
got
know
off
like
track.
what is your way of thinking about these things. I have my own, but I want to, ask all my guests. So
Yeah. I think
because
a lot of it has to do with who you play with, and what, because a lot of times it's just your band that's saying, do that one thing where you go like digga, like a lot of times the people telling you what to do don't know what to call it. So
sure.
you have to speak their language back to them, and you're like, okay, so if I do the digga thing on that, then you start just sounding like you're a scat singer or something.
Okay, so how do you call that tekka thing?
Triplet.
Okay. Do you want to play like something else? That we're getting close to all the questions that I wanted to ask you. Is there? Do you want to play one more? I enjoyed your last solo that you played.
Not the first one though.
I'm just messing
with you. I'm just
more like pieces that you demonstrated, but I like hearing representation that has the beginning and the story and then the end, and that was more what I heard with the last presentation that you did. So
okay,
can you give us a little more of that slap thing that you do?
Sure, let's do it.
All right.
How about something like, something like
all right.
that?
Yeah, I dig it. All right, I have a couple more questions for you. What is the best way, by your opinion, and what is your favorite way to record upright bass and slap bass?
For me, this is kind of always changing, but after I recorded with Deke, one of the things he told me is to not put any like a bunch of plugins on the bass mic, just kind of leave it, and that's totally changed the sound, because I used to always throw a bunch, like at least a compressor and an EQ on everything, but now I have this cheap Nady ribbon mic that I put on kind of the facing the, I don't know if I can lift this up high enough, facing the little corner here. I have that on the ground, and sometimes I'll use a second mic, but sometimes just that and a direct, and I'll have the direct pretty low. I know a lot of people don't like using the direct at all, but I kind of feel like if you're there, you might as well have it, and you can mute it later. So I do that. Sometimes I have this Octava small diaphragm condenser mic that I've kind of experimented with the placement of that a bit. But definitely having that mic on the treble side, the placement is everything, and making sure it doesn't move is everything. I got really accustomed to locking the bass in with my knees. I'm sure we all have with feedback problems, but just being in the studio for hours on end like this, like you have to go to the bathroom or something. But I think just making sure it doesn't move is a big thing, because with any instrument where you're just like, with drums they're not going anywhere, with guitar you're probably miking the amp, but yeah, I would say I think ribbons are great for getting a good bass response, but I've gotten good sounds out of condensers, dynamics. But I think the
Do you have
placement
a
is
favorite
everything.
brand?
Of mics, I really like that Octava mic that I have. I forget what it is. It's like an MK012 maybe. And I've used that even in the treble side angled position I was talking about. And it sounds great, but I just feel like I get more bass out of the other one. I think Deke even brought this recording up, but that Northside Girl recording, the way that I heard the bass on that, I was like, that's what stand-up bass should sound like on a record. It's clear, and it's like, it sounds like an old recording without any of the things that a lot of modern ears don't like about old recordings, that I'm sure people like you and I are still like it, but it's hard to sell a pop record that's full of hiss and distortion and stuff like that.
That's the best part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Do you ever record an amp as well?
I haven't. I've taken a direct out of an amp as my direct signal. But I know a lot of bands do that, and I've heard great results out of that. I've never done it personally. Most of the recording I do is in my room, so part of that would be I would either have to reamp it or have the amp in another room or something. I got an Amber Alert over here. I'm sorry. I feel bad I didn't even look at what it was.
Well, all of you that is watching the Slapstream, check your Amber Alerts. All right, I think that I pretty much asked you everything that I wanted to ask you for this episode, 68th episode of the Slapstream. Before I ask you my final question, is there anything that I missed that you would like to talk about, that you would like to mention? Any upcoming tours, albums?
I'm gonna be playing Rockabilly Rave in England with Deke Dickerson and also the Centuries. Got some stuff coming up with Reckless Ones. Have an album coming out next year. Hi Mom, hi Dad. I'm sure they'll be watching it. Stepmom, stepdad, Emily, Julia, the sisters, Madeline, my girlfriend, everybody in all the bands. Those are my shout outs.
All right. Okay, so my final question is, what inspired you to still do what you do? You discovered Rockabilly, you discovered slap bass about 15 years ago, if I can do my math correctly. And
wow, I wish your math wasn't that good. That's it's been too long.
And just let me know, like, what inspired you to still do what you do and be impressed with this style and for last 15 years?
it's interesting because it comes from such an old style, but there's more to learn all the time. As soon as I feel like I've kind of, I'm like, all right, I get it. But then someone's like, oh, have you ever played like this or heard this kind of style? It's always I'm always learning something, even just as far as the slap thing. There's intricacies to the style, and I guess it just keeps me on my toes.
Thanks a lot for being a part of the Slapstream of the 68th episode. And I wish I can see you play sometime soon, and I'm sure I will. And
Yeah, that'd
good
be
luck
great.
with all the projects, and see you somewhere down the road.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right, this was 68th episode of the Slapstream with Djordje, live from Slapsville. Thanks for all of you that have been watching the show. I would like to know in the comments, is there anyone that's seen all 68 episodes? Because I'm featuring not just rockabilly players, I'm featuring jazz guys, blues guys. I had like some very experimental music and bluegrass and everything. Whoever has something to say in a slap upright bass world. I think that it deserves to be featured on the Slapstream and brought the style. And I want to know more about it. I think that there's still more stuff to learn. There's always more stuff to learn. That's the beauty of it. And so let me know. How many episodes? Tell me in the comments. How many episodes have you seen of the Slapstream so far? This one is 68th. I kind of can't believe that I've been doing this for this long. Very interesting. But thanks to all of you that's been supporting. If you'd like to support the show, please check out PayPal and Venmo links in the description of this video. Please subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to click that subscribe button and slap that like. That helps with YouTube algorithm. And leave the comment. Let me know who would you like me to feature next. There's like lots of great bass players. I try to reach to most of them. I do read all these comments, so please do that. And the best way to support the Slapstream is if you subscribe to Patreon. The link for the Patreon is in the description of the video. And also you can make sure to buy these shirts. I think they're really cool. There's like a couple designs. Oh, there's a girl design as well. Let me show you that one. Different colors as well. Just go in the description of this video and you'll see that. Here's a girl one. Okay. I love this one. There's also Art of Slap Bass logo. Go check it out. Any color you want. I think that people mostly buy black one and the red one, but I really like the gray one and a couple other colors. And what else? I think that was it for now. And in the meantime, don't forget, never fret, slide it in smooth, and keep it in the groove. This is Djordje, and I will see you next Saturday.